1, we got the Rockies and Giants at 4 Eastern, followed by Robbie Cano and the Mets taking on Freddie Freeman and the Braves. An MLB doubleheader Saturday on FS1 and the Fox Sports app.
All right, let's go Mets. I've decided they're my New York NL team.
Yeah.
Decided that. Let's go Mets.
They need all the help they can get. Back here with Coach Mangini. Hey, tough week for Aaron Rodgers. Not so flattering article drops detailing the dysfunction between he and Mike McCarthy. A follow-up radio interview with Aaron calling it a smear campaign. And yesterday, Rodgers met with the media for the first time to address all of it. He maintained that despite everything, the expectations for the Packers remain the same.
Like I said a couple days ago, I think, there isn't a grace period. This isn't like other transitions where you, kind of maybe give a pass for the first year or two as you get acclimated to the system. I mean, we have, veteran quarterback, veteran offensive lineman. We signed, some big free agents for us, especially 3 on defense. And there's an expectation living and playing here that you're going to compete for championships, and I think we all expect to do that.
All right, Coach, if the Packers are going to get back into the playoffs, what do they have to do? How is their offense, how does this team have to gear itself up after everything that's happened in the offseason?
Well, the first thing I say is I agree with Aaron Rodgers to some degree. The expectations are the same. They're not the same. They're higher. You went and you made a change because you think that this transition is going to put you in a better place. He's healthy. They've retained the defensive coordinator, so they've got continuity on that side of the ball. They've got 2 first-round draft picks. They went and spent money in free agency. They've got 10 total draft picks. They retained the offensive line coach. They've got a veteran offensive line. To me, the expectations are higher than they were last season. Now, in order for that to be successful, there's going to have to be a very quick fusion between the head coach, the offensive coordinator, the quarterback coach, and Aaron Rodgers, because it's all dependent on him. And I see the articles, they need to go get him a wide receiver. No, he needs to play at the level that we expect him to play at. He'll make everybody else around him better if he does that. But from a head coaching perspective, they need to accommodate the things that Aaron does well. And when I brought in Brett Favre to New York, the only way that Brett Favre was going to work is if we did the things that he did well, if we accommodated him and made sure that we gave him the best chance to be successful in our system and included things that he was comfortable with. And they have to do that. They have to do that. So as excited as they are to maybe put their scheme in, you need to pump it a little bit and make sure the scheme works for him.
And so that's where the LaFleur-Rodgers relationship really has to take place immediately, right? That's where it has to be open lines of communication. That's where Aaron has to stay true to what he was he was really upset that there was an idea that Mark Murphy, or a report I should say, that Mark Murphy told him, don't be the problem. And he said that conversation never happened. I talked to Mark. Whether that conversation happened or not, I think is almost irrelevant to the point that now Rodgers needs to not be the problem, right? He needs to stay true to that. He needs to get with Matt LaFleur and figure out, okay, here is what you ideally want to do. Here's what I ideally want to do. How do we find the best meld of it? Because you're saying it shouldn't just be he hands it all over to LaFleur. Whatever you want, we'll do. That he should have some level of input on it, and that he needs to make sure, not just from LaFleur watching film of Aaron Rodgers, but from talking with him, here's what I actually like the best. Here are some things maybe we didn't do under Mike McCarthy that I think I would do really well, and that relationship needs to be starting immediately.
It absolutely needs to be starting immediately, and as a first-time head coach, there is a learning curve that he's going to go through, and he's benefiting from keeping Mike Patton. I think that was a really good decision organizationally for him to do that, but don't be the problem is sound advice. Be the catalyst. Be the reason that this team moves forward. Be the reason that this decision works, because you drive it more than anybody else does. And on the flip side, as a head coach, make sure that he's in the best possible position to be successful in terms of his comfort level.
How much different is this offense going to look next year with Rodgers and LaFleur there?
Well, I believe it will look different. I don't care what it looks like in the first 16 games. because it becomes important to me. If Green Bay is going to be successful, any successful team is built on the premise: how are we going to play our 8 games at home? How are we going to win once we get into the playoffs? There's no team that's saying, you know something, I plan on playing in the playoffs on the road. You'd like to build something like, okay, if I make it, I'm going on the road. But your team is built to play at home. Aaron Rodgers, the best team he was on, didn't win the Super Bowl. That was that 2011 team that went 15-1, and he was the MVP of the league. They get a bye week. They play the Giants. In that Giants game, y'all remember Tom Coughlin's face froze off? You remember that? Yeah. Okay, you know, this is what they did in that game. They decided to throw the ball 46 times in sub-zero weather. So for me, you can talk about all that scheme you want. If you can't do it when it's cold, because if they don't have home field advantage, there's a good chance Chicago might have home field advantage. So build your team around where you play your football. And I believe offensively, being able to run the football. They've had a top 10 rush offense since Aaron's been there. One time. From a defensive standpoint, you spent some money, you got a couple draft picks, create some turnovers, all right? That would help Aaron Rodgers out in these possessions. So you guys can get consumed with Aaron Rodgers as much as you want to. You want to throw the ball as much as you want to, but when it gets cold, the only way Green Bay is going to be able to win is have a balanced attack, be able to have some defense going to turn the ball over, and you can't rely on Aaron Rodgers to throw the ball 45 times in sub-zero temperature.
And part of that is Aaron's willingness to accept that. And we talk about Tom all the time, and if the game plan calls for running the ball 45 times, then so be it. It calls for running the ball 45 times. If it calls for throwing 10 hitches, really short outside pass, then that's what you do. You do whatever you have to do to win. And it's hard for a lot of guys when they've had success to look past their stats, to look past the things that make them look really good and say, okay, I'm going to take a more global view. And what do we need to do collectively just to win this game this week?
But it's easy for guys to do that when their introduction to the league is, we won doing exactly that. And that was Tom's introduction to the league. We won through running the football. We won through our defense. When you're Aaron Rodgers, and your introduction to the league is, I'm all we've got. I'm not only the best player on this team, we were, the year we went 15-1, the 32nd ranked defense in football. Forced bunch turnovers, second most in football. The last few years, I don't think the Packers haven't run the ball because Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to. I think they haven't run the ball because they haven't had great offensive line. They haven't had great running backs.
I guarantee you that Aaron Rodgers has not supported them running the football. I can guarantee you part of the problem is Aaron Rodgers thinking that I can do it myself. I can guarantee you that. I don't know a guy who's blessed to be able to throw the ball, doesn't think going through the air is better than going by ground. One of my great friends, Dan Marino. I hope Dan Marino didn't get supported by a defense or a running game. His career ends up going to 1 Super Bowl, and that was it. That is not what you want to see from Aaron Rodgers. So he was also playing in Miami. So he had a chance to be able to get away with it compared to Green Bay.
And we talk about support. Every year we talk about New England transitioning. He doesn't have receivers. He doesn't have offensive linemen. Nate Soldier leaves. This guy leaves. That guy leaves. And guess what? It transitioned. And the language has to stop being or starting with I. Like let's remove the I and start looking at this from a we perspective.
Okay, that last point's totally fair. But what also I think has to change, and we do this across sports, is we talk about a guy as the best in the world, and in Brady's case, the best ever. And then when guys are less than that, we look at it as a huge negative. Nobody else is Tom Brady. It's why he gets to be the universally accepted GOAT. It's why he gets to be, there's no debate about who the greatest quarterback of all time is. It's Brady. And so we can't just say with...
It's not that Brady's the greatest quarterback, because Brady's not the best athlete ever played. He's not the best thrower of the football. But as far as running the team, engineering, the things are important. He is the best field general that we have seen. He is the best at adapting to who he used to be, turned into something else, and taking coaching to its limit. So Tom Brady, I know some of the greatest quarterbacks. I know how rigid they were. I know the lack of flexibility that they had in them. Tom Brady has not had that, and we're going to give him credit for it because he does not have the talent that these other guys have.
I totally agree with that, and that's almost my point. My point is Brady is the universally accepted GOAT. despite not having these physical gifts, because he is so great at the things you're talking about. So holding anyone to that intangible standard of, well, Brady does it, I think it's unfair. I think it's when it's
unfair for us to.
Yeah, I don't think it's unfair at all, because we're not talking about things that a person can't achieve. We're not saying that you have to have this incredible arm strength like Tom Brady. You have to have this incredible mobility like Tom Brady. We're talking about things that
you can control.
Decisions that you decide to make in the locker room. Decisions that are inherently in your control.
But for some reason, he's the only quarterback in the league that's ever done it on this level. He's the only quarterback currently playing. Cam Newton can't do it. Matt Ryan evidently can't do it. Drew Brees evidently couldn't do it. Like, so if no one else
and we criticize the rest of them too.
Okay, all right. If all of them are going to get the same heat when they're not living up to the Brady
all of them
standard?
shouldn't get the same heat. You should get what the heat you should give to a quarterback is based on his ability. To much is given, much is required. It's a Bible verse, but it's also real. Aaron Rodgers has more talent. He should get more heat. His team is doing less than what he should do. There is no more valuable player on the football field because he's touching it every time. And they're getting less out of Aaron Rodgers than they're getting out of other people. So as long as I'm on this show, Aaron Rodgers will get more heat because he's got more damn talent. That's why. I don't criticize Andy Dalton as much as him. Why? The kid's got red hair, man. Hey, he don't have the same gifts. He don't have, hey, all right? He don't have the same talent.
Not right.
That's the... Oh, I am right.
No, poor guy.
I mean, I don't criticize him because of his hair. I criticize him because of his arms.
Coach,
I mean, nothing wrong with redheads.
Glad you got to experience that.
Nothing wrong with redheads.
Nothing at all.
I mean, as long as they can throw.
Yeah,
dude cost me $20,000 in the Pro Bowl. Don't tell me.
What I would say. Well, Magic Johnson's resignation fueled